about Christian spiritual practices. I don't mean religious, I mean spiritual. So I was brought up kind of liberal Catholic. My mum was a novice nun for 7 years in the contemplative tradition. Had relatively positive experience that I was quite into it as a child, actually, before I got I don't know, before I saw that a lot of the mythology of the religious side wasn't very rational, and I went, well, that doesn't really make sense to me, you know. So yeah, I guess now for me, that Christian heritage is still a part of me. It's really in my bones. It's close to the heart. I've heard this from a lot of people, actually. Even though I'm a Buddhist and, you know, friends who become Hindus or whatever, it can still stay quite close. So sometimes it's worth re-engaging with. I know people have had mystical experiences, for example, years after they've given up Christianity, and it's come as a Christian religious experience. So there's some real spiritual practices within Christianity. If we look at it as a praxis rather than as a societal kind of religious code to control us, which is what obviously it became in the world. So what are some of the practices that are there? Well, of course, ethics. I think ethics is underrated in Buddhism as well as a practice. This is a key practice, you know, having that code of conduct. And obviously monastics will really take this quite far and have this very strict code, but that's actually about surrender. That's the practice there. Yeah, the practice there is not just obedience. It's you know, the rule of St. Benedictine or whatever. It's actually about giving over your ego to something bigger, and that practice of surrender, putting yourself aside, which can actually be a very beautiful thing. And if a rebel like me says that, then, you know, there's something in it. I've done this when I've stayed with monastics, for example, from the Buddhist tradition. And even if that was something like silence, you know, that's part of many Christian traditions, very contemplative, to be in silence, to be informed by that. Prayer, of course. Now, we tend to think of prayer as like what's called petitionary prayer, which is like asking something, please, Jesus, give me a BMW. Yeah. Actually, the nicest description of prayer I had was this nun was on the radio, and someone said to her, what do you ask for when you pray? She said, I don't ask for anything, I listen. And she said, oh, okay, what does God say to you? She said, oh, he listens too. Yeah, it's a very different view of prayer, this deep listening. There's also, of course, like prayer as mantra. So if someone's saying Hail Marys and you're maybe using the beads as a way to stay present, this is essentially a mantra meditation. Yeah, it's about staying present within that. Just distilling. I just sat in the church today for 10 minutes. It wasn't like my big, you know, Buddhist meditation. Just sitting quietly. That itself is a spiritual practice. Yeah. There is Christian meditation like Aramatha, which is kind of very explicitly mantra meditation, usually using Aramaic as well, which is quite beautiful, but seems to me often kind of like Buddhism light. Like the people that came up with it came from the Desert Fathers, but then it got lost and it got reinvented by people that were influenced by Hinduism and Buddhism. It doesn't seem as rich, if I'm honest, as a kind of Buddhist practice. So maybe there's something about doing the Christian practice as Christian. Yeah. Of course, giving, charity, big Christian kind of generosity, absolutely in common with Buddhism. In this way, what I see the Christians do really well often is community. So when we think of a church isn't a building. A church is a group of people. The church is a group of people. Yeah. So that sense of community coming together, and in ritual, which can be kind of degraded in many traditions, you know, the Buddhists and would say, no, we're not about ritual. Yeah, you'll see that, but actually there are, you know, the Buddhist rituals, of course, now as well. The beauty of ritual is, again, is being in that familiar, letting yourself go. That can be very soothing, very community building to do things all together. Yeah, so there are some of the kind of Christian spiritual practices that I see. In terms of embodied Christian spiritual practices, I'll do that as a separate video. And this is just scratching the surface. I'm no expert on this. Cindy Wigglesworth is someone I respect. Cool name, her. She's a spirituality teacher, integral spirituality teacher that has a basis in this. There's other people out there. There's actually surprisingly rich literature on Christian spiritual practices. A practice, this is a method. Yeah, that's what I always liked about Buddhism. It didn't just say believe this. It didn't just say you know, you have to have faith or this is an imaginary system. It said, look, try these things, try these methods. And yeah, these are my thoughts on the beautiful, rich Christian tradition. I know many of you may have trauma with Christian traditions as well. I'll talk about that in another video.